Welcome to Keyforge Public Radio with your host, Zach Armstrong.
Hello, dear listener, and welcome to Keyforge Public Radio. I am your host, Zach Armstrong, and today is a bit of a throwback. If you listened to Call of Discovery, you were very used to our frequent deck discovery episodes. We had a number of versions of these. Usually when we had a guest on for a topic, we would then immediately follow it up with an episode on one of the decks they wanted to talk about from their collection. What was special about it, the stories they had with it, what made it unique, and sometimes when a new set was coming up, we would open decks either before we recorded an episode or while we recorded an episode and talk about decks from a new set and how excited we were on that. So we're doing a bit of a throwback to that because there's a very special situation in that I have received a Grim Reminders deck from a dear friend, J.K. Hops, over on Team SAS, attended Keyforge Celebration, and was very, very kind in keeping a sealed Grim Reminders deck and then sent it to me. How amazing is that? Thank you so much, Jared of Team SAS, for doing that because it was just so much fun. We actually opened some of these on stream over on Twitch a little while back, and it was a great time. And so what I want to do is I want to walk through this deck with you and tell you what's going on with this Grim Reminders deck, what is really cool about it, and really just dive through it like I would any other Keyforge deck. Of course, we're going to see a lot of things unique to Grim Reminders, both in the cards that are included and the synergies going on. And then I'm going to talk about what I think is really exciting about this as an indicator of what Grim Reminders can be, because this deck is a ton of fun. This deck is a ton of fun, and I'm excited to play it. It is at least medium good. It's at least medium good. It has good matchups into some relatively strong WoW decks in our local scene, and it's been a lot of fun to pilot. My friends have had a lot of fun piloting it. So we're going to talk about it, and then going to talk about what I really enjoy about it, and that's where we will be. So this deck is called Bialfi, Brother the Machine, Ingeson. Brother the Machine is in quotes. It's Bialfi, Brother the Machine, Ingeson. It is a Ekwidon, Star Alliance, and Brobnar deck. I did have to admit I was not terribly excited when I saw Star Alliance. Just looking at the spoilers, I haven't been really hot on Star Alliance as a house in Grim Reminders. However, the lineup here works pretty well. So I've got a number of the stats here on this deck as I counted them all up. So this deck has 15 creatures, and the spread here is important. There are 6 in Star Alliance. There are 6 in Brobnar, and then 3 in Ekwidon. Ekwidon is mostly actions and then a few upgrades as well. We have 1 artifact in here and then 4 upgrades. What's really interesting is the theme of offensive upgrades you play on your opponent's creatures to do damage or to slow stuff down or to do control. And out of the 4 upgrades I have in this deck, 3 of them are offensive upgrades, which makes for some really interesting choices and interesting play when I have a fair number of upgrades that are all offensive upgrades of different kinds. Now, in Grim Reminders, you are likely aware we have a new ability coming in called Scrap. And so when a card has Scrap on it, and I've seen these on, I think, pretty much any kind of card. It's not limited to one type of card. Scrap occurs if it's your turn and that card is discarded from your hand during your turn. So it has to be your turn and from your hand, and then you get that Scrap effect as that card. They're discarded one at a time. So if you're discarding a bunch of cards from your hand, you pick the order, you send one with a Scrap effect to the pile, and then you resolve the Scrap effect, and then you do the next one. Say if you were using a card like I have in here, I have, what is it called? It's Ekwidon, dumps things from your hand, steal one, Trade Secrets. If you have the Ekwidon card, Trade Secrets, where you discard any number of Ekwidon cards from your hand and then steal that much amber. If you have multiple Scrap effects, you can order those however you like as you discard those cards in that order. As far as the amber this thing generates outside of the pips, it has 15 bonus amber, which is pretty dang good. I know a lot of decks in the past I've opened have ended anywhere from just 8 or maybe a little fewer, 8 to like maybe 12. So 15 is quite good. And that comes with a couple other ways I can generally count on amber happening. like two generous offers. The Ekwidon card, first printed in Winds of Exchange, that reads, play, destroy a friendly creature. If you do, steal 2. So if we count that as 2 amber gain per generous offer, along with, there's some other cards in here that may generate a little amber, nothing quite as direct. Oh, actually, there is an estate sale. This is a really cool new Ekwidon action card that says, play, purge a non-creature card from your discard pile. If you do, gain 2 amber. So that's pretty sweet. So if we count that bonus 6, that's at least 21 expected amber, and there's probably going to be a bit more as we go here, especially because we have 2 Brick Nasties, which is really, really great in some ways to activate things. So the expected gamer is going to be in the 20-something range here. There is not a lot of speed, and that would be card draw. There's no archiving, not a lot of card draw. There's not a lot of traditional speed in that sense, except for a number of discard icons. So if you're familiar with enhancement icons from previous sets, they launched in Mass Mutation, where a card comes into your deck with enhance and then distributes the related bonus icons into the deck. I actually have 4 discard icons. 2 ended up on a Berserker Slam, which is really fun, and we're going to talk about some really fun synergies with scrap effects in a moment. And then I got one on a Bonded Auctioneer over in Ekwidon, and then one on Fortune Reverser, which is one of those offensive upgrades that blanks the creature you play it onto and destroys upgrades attached to that creature. Now, a quick side note with the scrap effects here and these discard icons. So what is really cool is that when you play a card with the discard icon, you'll choose and discard a card from your hand, and if that card has a scrap effect, you get to use the scrap effect. One really cool combo I have found is that I have Bonded Auctioneer with a discard icon attached to it. This is a 4-power creature in Ekwidon, Merchant and Gatruki traded. It has After Reap, destroy an artifact. If you do, its controller gains 1. Scrap, return an artifact to its owner's hand. So the scrap effect is good for some delaying of an artifact, but it's not really hard artifact removal like the After Reap effect is. However, I also have Staff Sergeant Ray in this deck. And Staff Sergeant Ray has a scrap effect that reads, ready and user-friendly creature. So I can play Bonded Auctioneer. It hits the table. I resolve the discard bonus icon. I discard Staff Sergeant Ray. Then I trigger the scrap effect, ready and user-friendly creature. I can then choose to ready and use a Bonded Auctioneer itself and to reap with it to then destroy an artifact. And if you do, its controller gains 1. So Bonded Auctioneer actually can, on play, remove an artifact from the board if I have Staff Sergeant Ray in hand, and that is just one of the at least 1 to 2 dozen really interesting little combos you can do when you're playing around with these discard bonus icons, but more on that later. So again, it's about 15 creatures, 16 actions, 1 artifact, and 4 upgrades. Now, as far as, and about 20-something expected amber, roughly, with quite a lot of that being from some stealing in Ekwidon. So we have the 2 generous offers I mentioned. We have Alien Horror, which is kind of a funny card. It's not super good, but it's not bad. Well, we'll see, right? It's definitely not top tier. Alien Horror is a 3-power alien in Star Alliance, and it says, while you are haunted, Alien Horror gets +7 power. Now remember, of course, you're probably familiar, haunted means you have 10 or more cards in your discard pile, so Alien Horror just gets huge when you're haunted. And it has After Fight. Each of Alien Horror's neighbors captures 1. That is pretty cool. We definitely actually have some captured amber tricks. I believe it's just 1 over in, Triangulator Newsome. Triangulator Newsome has Deploy and After Reap. After Reap, if you are haunted, move each amber from Triangulator Newsome's neighbors to your pool. So Triangulator Newsome actually can get deployed, and then I can discard Staff Sergeant Ray, especially during a Star Alliance turn, of course, and then go ahead and ready and use Triangulator Newsome to take that captured amber the same turn I play it. So really watching out for that Staff Sergeant Ray is pretty crucial, and I will be able to use her well no matter when I get her. Really, the question will be, do I hold her for a big combo if I can play towards it and if I need it? We have 2 Strength from Diversity in here, which reads, it has an amber pip, it enhances with a capture and a discard icon, and reads, play each friendly non-Star Alliance creature captures 1. So we have 2 of those. That's a great setup for Triangulator Newsome. It is very similar to City State Interest, except with the non-Star Alliance creature qualifier. I do think it ends up being better because the Star Alliance creatures aren't going to be that hardy anyways, except for Necromorph. We'll get to him in a minute. And then it has a Amber Pip, a Capture Pip, and a Discard Pip, along with all the capturing, and then the synergy with Newsome in this deck. So 2 strengths from Diversity is quite good. I'm actually really happy that's in here, especially with 6 Brobnar creatures. I'm very happy about that. We have Out-Negotiate and Trade Secrets, which are reprints, of course. Trade Secrets, like I mentioned earlier, discard any number of Ekwidon cards from your hand, steal 1 for each discarded this way. And then Out-Negotiate has a pip. It says, choose a card in your opponent's discard pile, steal amber equal to the number of amber bonus icons on that card, and put that card on the bottom of its owner's deck. So really great if you're knocking cards out of your opponent's hands, like we have with the Recklessness later, a Brobnar card that we'll get to, where you're discarding random cards from your opponent's hand, and if you can knock something out with a lot of Amber Pips that they don't get to play, and then you steal them without Negotiate, that is a great spot to be in. Now, this is a card that in an original form did not make it to Winds of Exchange. This is an Ekwidon card art project. This is a rare. It's an action card with a pip, and it says play Unforge an opponent's key. If you do, purge art project, and your opponent draws 10 cards. It's a one-use card to unforge an opponent's key, and you don't even pay them back for the amber, you just give them 10 cards. It is a really interesting tempo card. Generally, yeah, I think it's going to be worth it. This is going to be definitely worth it in Sealed. I think this may become less worth it if you are against a very high strength deck that you have just gotten a little tempo on, and you know they can key cheat and combo out if they have 16 cards in hand. However, that evaluation remains to be tested as we go, of course. Lastly, in Amber Control, we have the classic Bumpsy, which in this deck is actually a legacy all the way from Call of the Archons. I'm not sad to see that. It's just 5-power giant play. Your opponent loses 1. And then Forge Master Og. This is actually fantastic. It was first printed in, I believe, Call of the Archons. And Forge Master Og reads, it's a creature, and it says, after a player forges a key, they lose all of their remaining amber. So basically a low-key interdimensional graft that you can just drop and they can't respond to. So if they've bursted, they'll lose that amber. We also do, of course, have Berserker Slam. Didn't put it in my Amber Control pile. Definitely is an Amber Control card with play, deal 4 damage to a flank creature. If this damage destroys that creature, its controller loses 1. Comes with an Amber Pip, and this has 2 discard icons on it, which means you can start to combo with a couple scrap effects. One really fun scrap effect we have in here in Creature Control with Berserker Slam is Ornar Skullface. It's a new card, 5-power giant with Assault 3, and it has scrap, deal 3 damage to a creature. If there's a small creature on a flank and I want to blow it up and then get into a creature I could destroy with Berserker Slam, I can play Berserker Slam. And remember, we're resolving from the top of the card down. So the discard bonus pips and that Amber Pip are going to resolve before we get to the play effect. So we can discard Ornar Skullface, deal 3 damage to a creature, and if we blow up a flank creature, that is now giving us access to a new flank creature for Berserker Slam to target. So there's all sorts of fun double things we can do in here. We can do it here with those scrap effects. So as far as creature control goes and rewarding us for creature control, we have quite a lot related to creature control. We have 2 Brick Nasty related to this as far as rewarding creature control. We of course have 4 other Brobnar creatures, and then Cacophonous Riot. This is a fantastic card, comes with a bonus Amber Pip, and it says play Ready and Enrage a creature and each of its neighbors. So you can play out a whole line of Brobnar, Ready and Enrage all of them, and fight with them, and if you've got a few Brick Nasties out there, then you are profiting. We have Belligerent Guard, of course, 2 creature control, the upgrades that are pretty cool. They're in Ekwidon here. There's some of those offensive upgrades we mentioned earlier are Phobivore, which is an uncommon upgrade with an Amber Pip. It says this creature gains while you are haunted. This creature cannot be used. So while your opponent is haunted, you can shut down the use of a creature. Pretty good. I'm happy about that. And then Fortune Reverser, which says an upgrade that says this creature's text box is considered blank except for traits. Play, destroy all other upgrades attached to this creature. So I really enjoy that. It is a great control card that is uncommon in Ekwidon, so I think we're going to be seeing that pretty regularly. And it is a fantastic control card that fits in just the right niche to really mix things up as far as being a helpful card in the metagame here. We have Unprepared, which is simply a better version of Radiant Truth, I believe, from Call of the Archons, because it has an Amber Pip, and otherwise it's the same. It says play, choose a house, stun each creature of that house. That is quite good. I love stunning creatures. It really slows them down by a full turn, and being able to do that to an entire house is great, whether you're shutting down a developed board state for tempo, or maybe you're just going on your turn 2. Your opponent played 3 creatures on their turn, and you can just stun them all for a little tempo hit there. We do have Essence Entangler, which is really interesting. This creature gets -X power, where X is the number of amber on this creature. A great way to immediately kill any of those mass capture cards, which is great. This does have a scrap ability, move 1 amber from a creature to another creature. There is a Pyro in here, which I enjoy. There is this very interesting common from Equidon called Hoaxpitality. It says, play, choose an enemy creature and a friendly creature until the end of the turn. The friendly creature's power is equal to the enemy creature's power. This is generally not very useful unless there is a big creature that is on the other side and you want to slam, well, at least one of your Equidon people. Now I have Belligerent Guard, Bonded Auctioneer, and then Iron Heidi in here, 5 power. So really it's only useful if there's a huge creature on the other side and I want to get that 10, 12, 20 power and then do an even trade. So really not a very good card. Lastly, we also have down to size. Choose an enemy creature until the end of the turn. That creature is considered to have 1 power and 0 armor. Pretty fun removal. Not quite as good of a direct removal as a lot of other stuff we've seen, but still relatively solid, especially because we do have a little bit of ping damage in this deck. A couple of damage pips from enhancements that we've seen around. Lastly, a card I really, really love is Soul Bomb. This is an artifact. It has Omni. If you are haunted, deal 4 damage to each creature, destroy Soul Bomb. So having that on demand whenever you want it and 4 damage to all creatures, destroying Soul Bomb is really good because you can just use it when you want to, and a lot of our creatures it does not kill, which is fantastic, especially in Brobnar. And 4 damage is a lot. That's really going to take care of a lot of the more powerful medium and smaller creatures, right? 5 power is really where you have staying power. 4 and under is much more removable, so being able to take all of those out at your discretion, because you are doing it double-sided, is fantastic, or setting up a Berserker Slam. And I love that the cost is only haunted. There was a card that was better than people thought it was. It still wasn't great because people thought it was terrible, called Volcano back in, I believe, Brobnar card in Worlds Collide that dealt 4 to all creatures and gave you 2 entire chains, which is only 1 chain less than Gateway to Dis, which had play destroy all creatures, gain 3 chains. So seeing Soul Bomb as an artifact so that you can play it as you want to on any of the future turns is fantastic. Of course, I mentioned Bonded Auctioneer. That's our only artifact control. We can scrap to bounce or after reap to destroy, which is fantastic. Now we have a couple really interesting kind of wacky control cards in here. Some discarding. We have 2 Recklessness, which enhances a damage pip and a discard pip. It comes with an amber pip itself, and it says play. Each player discards 3 random cards from their hand, then draws 3 cards. This is great for interrupting your opponent's handcrafting. If they're listening to KPR, they're going to hate getting hit with this, right? It's going to hit your opponent's handcrafting, and you get to choose basically when to play it. Are you comfortable discarding random cards from your hand? And here's the thing. If you're Grim Reminders versus Grim Reminders, you're getting your scrap effects. They're not getting their scrap effects. And their hand is getting messed up. And any Brobnar that you draw, you can then continue to play on your turn. So even though it is 2-sided, it is immensely more in your favor than your opponent. An interesting related card is Mournful Barnburner. That's our other Brobnar creature. It's a 6-power giant with after fight, discard the top 2 cards of a player's deck. I love that you can choose whether you're looking to dig through your own deck or whether you are looking to introduce some variance into your opponent and knock some cards at the top of their deck, although you might be getting them closer to their answer as well, so that's up to you. And it also has scrap. Each player discards the top card of their deck. I have done tricks where I saw somebody through other cards put a card they really wanted on top of their deck on their turn when they didn't draw it. And then I get to scrap and discard the top of it knowing exactly what it was. So that has been useful here and there. An interesting board presence card is Necromorph. This is a rare creature from Star Alliance, 5-power shapeshifter alien. It has destroyed if Necromorph has a non-Star Alliance neighbor. Fully heal Necromorph and destroy that neighbor instead. This is basically a less powerful like Reassembling Automaton from some of the earlier sets over in Logos, where it's a nice creature with a destroyed effect that keeps it on the board under certain conditions. 5 power is quite nice for the trade-off in that it is able to get destroyed if there are, if it doesn't have a non-Star Alliance neighbor. But I quite enjoyed having this in a house with 6 total creatures, where I can really rely on this sticking around as a creature that can reap or fight as needed. Now, of course, it's not OP. It's not anything that's going to combo out and win a game. However, it's a really consistent performer if you need to have a board presence to help win the game, get a few extra reaps in over the course of a game. Some honorable mentions here. We have, of course, I mentioned Estate Sale. We have Iron Heidi, who basically turns into a bulwark when you're haunted. And then Stronger Together, which reads, ready each Star Alliance creature that has 2 non-Star Alliance neighbors of different houses. This one is all about setting up your battle line correctly if it's not at a huge cost to you to try to get this out where you could ready and reap with some stuff there. Lastly, the really cool tech in here is Elliot. This is an uncommon 4-power robot in Star Alliance. It says play after fight after reap. You may play an upgrade from your discard pile onto Elliot, which is super cool. Now, hilariously, 3 out of my 4 upgrades are offensive. So really, if I'm going after... and then my one beneficial one, Anachrometer, has no bonus pips. I really am just playing it for the pips on the offensive things. If I am playing one of the offensive upgrades onto Elliot, most of which shut poor Elliot down or make it blank. It really is a bit of I have to measure the cost reward there with Elliot. It does have scrap, shuffle all upgrades from play into their owner's decks. I do really enjoy that because you can use it to get all the pips on the upgrades that are in its own deck, and if we're playing offensively and we want to get rid of especially something crazy like a ghost form, we can hit the scrap effect to shuffle those in. So Elliot does have some cool plays with the discard pip over on let's see, on Fortune Reverser, that discard pip over there, where I get to play Elliot, get that bonus Amber pip and that discard pip, and then discard something for a scrap effect that does, of course, blank Elliot itself, but it could be worth it from time to time. There's been some really cool stuff in this deck. I really enjoy it. There are a lot of sequencing choices with those scrap effects and with what you're discarding to pick and to find small to medium combos that all add up to a really fun game and a lot of good power. Now, the thing is, people have been calling this a combo set, and I totally agree. The one thing is that I haven't seen a ton, except for the key cheats. There are not a ton of big payoff cards. Now, that being said, I think there are a lot of key cheats at common. There is Boo, and then Ecto Charge, and then Spooky. So, okay, these decks are going to be around. Maybe I should say that differently. You're just going to see a lot of the payoff cards are these key cheats. So watch out for decks with those key cheats where you really can consistently pull off little combos that get you keys cheated out or for free or through some other really great set of combos that you have. One combo I found in the middle of playing with this was I had Staff Sergeant Ray out, who has other text we haven't mentioned. It says, Staff Sergeant Ray's neighbors may be used as if they belonged to House Star Alliance. Now, something really cool here is that I had Staff Sergeant Ray, and I was in my active house was Brobnar, and I had a line of Brobnar creatures, including my Brick Nasties, right next to Staff Sergeant Ray. They were big enough creatures on the other side of the board that I could fight with the neighbor of Staff Sergeant Ray and slam that creature into an enemy creature. And then it died, and the battle line collapsed, and now there was a new ready Brobnar creature next to Staff Sergeant Ray, ready to be used, ready to trigger Brick Nasty. And I just fought all the way down the line, getting a bunch of amber and destroying their board while into Star Alliance turn doing other things. So you can see how there's all sorts of small to medium combos in here as you go. There's a little deck thinning with Estate Sale to purge non-creature cards. There are all sorts of little control things, all sorts of, there's amber control in at least how many, just by card count, not even power, there's 4, 5, 6. There's 12 cards in here that affect the opponent's amber. There's 12 cards in here that affect them as amber control, so 1 out of every 3 cards affects their amber in some way, or their keys. I am counting art project in there. So that feels really nice to always have a little Amber control on hand. It's not overwhelming. There's nothing like a TMTP or running wrist clocks. However, Trade Secrets and Out Negotiate can steal big if there's the right setup. Strength from Diversity can also be a big tempo hit, and Generous Offer, of course, stealing 2 is fantastic. So while none of it is fully TMTP level, the Generous Offers, of course, sacrificing a creature, and the other things, do a bit more than we have seen kind of at that common slot than in previous sets. And so there's a bit more combo potential. Like in Strength from Diversity, they made what was essentially a city-state interest weaker on the Amber control part, but really pumped it up as far as the utility goes with an Amber pip, a capture pip enhanced, and a discard pip enhanced. So what I think this deck is showing us about Grim Reminders, or at least what I'm hoping, let me phrase it this way, what I hope I'm seeing as a regular Grim Reminders trait in this deck that I will see in the other decks, is that there is a whole new level of discovery of learning combos and finding tricks, being rewarded for sequencing correctly and really thinking about how to order things to get the most you can out of any one turn, and a lot of discovery of tricks, especially with how discard bonus pips are placed, right? Because I have the 2 on the Berserker Slam, the 1 on the Bonded Auctioneer, the 1 on the Upgrade, and all of these have really, really interesting ways to use scrap effects triggered by that particular discard pip, right? On Bonded Auctioneer, if I have Staff Sergeant Ray, I can ready and fight with Bonded Auctioneer. Elliot can go grab the Upgrade with the discard pip on it in case I want to use that discard pip to discard a non-Star Alliance card, right? Berserker Slam has 2, and I can use a few of those scrap effects to clear the way to get to a new creature with Berserker Slam or get some other things done. There's a lot going on in this deck, and I'm always excited to play it to see what happens. And the great thing with the discard pips and the other kinds of discards effects that are here, that's not traditional speed, but it is speed because the more you're discarding, the more you're drawing up at the end of their turn. And when you have the choice over what you discard, like with these discard pips, you can really start to handcraft. So I think it's going to be a high rewarding skill set, right? Grim Reminders that's going to be a really fantastic thing about the set. I want to see how new player friendly it feels, right? Now, because what you don't want is so much complexity that overwhelms a new player who is trying out Keyforge through Grim Reminders. What would be ideal, though, is if they play a Grim Reminders deck and they still have a great time, even if they didn't see all the complexity. Because then they can learn the deck, they can feel generally good about playing the deck and learning Keyforge on the deck, and then that deck rewards them for thinking about Keyforge and for learning more. And there are a lot of key cheats, and by a lot of key cheats in this set, I mean there are more relative to the past couple of sets, which have had quite fewer or less powerful or more situational ones like Keyfrog, Obsidian Forge, things like this. And there's quite a number of new key cheats coming in to this set, especially spooky with the return of Untamed. I love Untamed. I'm really excited for Geistoid. Ectocharge is at common. So keep an eye out for being able to quickly and efficiently play your first couple of turns, your first 2 keys, and then being able to just combo out after you finish that second key with all sorts of scrap effects and other things to Amber Burst, and then close it with a spooky or boo into Ectocharge. Something like that. I'm having a ton of fun with my one and only Grim Reminders deck so far. I can't wait to get more from the Game Found and then for it to hit retail and be playing this in the local scene. I'm real excited about that. Thank you all so much. This has been Keyforge Public Radio. Thank you so much to everybody who has been supporting the show, and we will see you next week. Visit KeyforgePublicRadio.com to find all of our episodes, transcripts, blog posts, the KPR store, and more. Keyforge Public Radio is made possible with support from listeners just like you who believe in this game and this show. When you join the Patreon, you receive access to votes on content, sneak peeks, early knowledge of interviews, access to the Discord, and other benefits. So come on down, I'd be honored if you joined us. Follow KPR on any social media platform you frequent. Just search for Keyforge Public Radio, and we're probably there. This show is produced by Rooster High Productions, which is me. And remember, dear listener, the most